Good morning.
Good morning. Happy Wednesday. We're in April.
I know, here we are. And we missed April Fools, so we don't have to worry about that anymore.
That was a rough one to try to get through without, stepping on
Yeah,
some sort of, joke or whatever.
100% for sure. well, I must be excited about today's event or topic because the countdown seemed really long. I was like waiting for it to start. So let's dive in. So today's topic is ready, set, action, making time for content, how to schedule out your week for maximum content value. So some of these steps are across the board for any value you're going to do, but we also are talking a little bit about content creation and the value of that and how we can make it efficient because let's face it, when you look at the platforms and all there is to do and blogging and web, it's a little exhausting when you think of all the places you might need to do content. So thanks everyone for listening, and we will talk about, I have a lot of experience with content creation and things like that, and indeed I both have a lot of experience with how do you fit everything in a day. So let's talk about it. So you want to kick us off with tip number one?
Yeah, thanks. I think that it can be daunting, right? When you start thinking about, oh my gosh, I've got to manage Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook and TikTok and YouTube and blah, 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 blah,
Mm-hmm.
blah. The list can go on, right? And I don't have enough hours in the day,
Mm-hmm.
between my job, you know, the business itself and then family and stuff like that. So,
Mm-hmm.
the good news is that when you look at how scheduling can play such a great role in really helping you get everything done, it becomes much easier to manage what appears to be a B step first, right?
Yeah,
And
for
I
sure.
think if you start at a good foundation, you're halfway there. And really
Mm-hmm.
creating those content pillars is what's going to help you to be successful, right? And when I say
Mm-hmm.
content
Mm-hmm.
pillars, I mean what define the purpose of the content that you're going to create, right?
Okay.
And then everything can kind of flow from there. Your mind can get energy from there. So, for
Mm-hmm.
example, some content pillars that I lean on a lot are like, all right, so I want to talk about my brand offering. That's one content
Mm-hmm.
pillar. And then I want to also have an educational or value type of content that's not salesy at all, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want to bring light to the solution that I provide, right? So that would be the
Mm-hmm.
third one. And then for some people, it's all about the company culture that they're trying to create. For me, it's more client partnerships. What can
Mm-hmm.
you expect
Mm-hmm.
from working with me? Um, you know, um, what's that journey going to look like type of thing. And then another area that someone might focus on is the customer feedback side of it in terms of,
Okay.
what information are you getting from the customer,
Mm-hmm.
and then also how do you generate more feedback from the customer. So it's also ideas that you can use in content um,
Yeah.
to
I like that because what it's if you're spending the energy, why make it off point or off brand or off whatever?
yeah.
Like make it as valuable as possible. Makes
Yeah, so
sense.
give them what they want to know about, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so once you've got those content pillars kind of defined, then it becomes more of a brainstorming session, right? To
Mm-hmm.
figure out, and I hear this a lot of times from the solopreneurs. Well, I can't brainstorm because it's just me. you know? And normally it's like if you're
Yeah.
brainstorming, you're imagining a group of people brainstorming together,
Mhm.
throwing out ideas and stuff like that. So if you don't have
Mhm.
somebody to kind of, bounce things around with, then,
Right.
again, ask the audience, ask your
Mhm.
clients, your prospects, things of that nature. What's important to
Yeah.
them? How do they evaluate a product or solution like yours?
Mhm.
Those types of things. Also, we've touched on this in previous sessions. The keyword research, right?
Mhm.
And what can you
Yeah.
take from that to kind of start to build out content, because you know that they're looking for those keywords, when they're
Mhm.
out there searching
Mhm.
for you. So then flip it
Yeah.
and use those keywords to develop some content.
Yeah. You're right. I mean, that's smart. Like, there's LinkedIn groups, there's Google. These are your team members for brainstorming your little think tank. Because I remember doing like, what is the best marketing, and see what Google autofills, right? Like, that's a great way to say, oh, this must be something people are asking. So yeah, there's a lot of cool ways to do it.
Yeah, that's a great
So
tip.
makes
That's a
sense.
great tip. And then I
Mm-hmm.
think
Mm-hmm.
look at reverse brainstorming too. So,
Okay.
identify what causes issues or undesired results that your clients are
Mm-hmm.
having, and then work
Right.
backward from there to create content that kind of helps them, avoid
I
that
like.
those
Yeah.
pitfalls or
Mm-hmm.
that type of thing, and work it that way into content.
I like that one.
And
That's
then the
nice.
final piece of it just kind of leads, I think, into your tip is, to batch, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to really be able to segment the content in such a way that you can use that content idea, and
Mm-hmm.
create a LinkedIn post, an Instagram infographic, and maybe a
Yeah.
blog post out of all of that same content. And
Mm-hmm.
then that way you've got three channels covered, from one idea.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. I really still struggle with video content versus written content and how to sort of loop them together. It's, like I don't use Instagram Reels and Instagram much, to be honest, just because my core sale, my target audience, they're there, but I'm not sure. It just doesn't. It's maybe it's just not as I don't have enough time to deal with that
Yeah.
well. So I focus on the LinkedIn and some of the other communication methods. But if you're using that Reels, and like you have to prioritize. Like, you can't, I don't think you can do it all. So you have to
Right.
do something
Yeah.
well and then try to add to it as you go.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, don't try to conquer the world all at once,
mhm,
because, it's just going to end up overwhelming you, right? And you're not going to be able
mhm,
to do it.
mhm,
So, yeah.
yeah.
So that leads us kind of into tip 2, right?
Yes. So I wanted to share just some thoughts on, scheduling tools and automation that might help you, especially when you're looking at this. So, and just as a side note, I've become a big uh, time blocker in general. Like, how do I focus my time throughout the week? When are the moments where Slack is off, my phone is away, email is shut down? Because 2 hours of very focused work for me, I can do so much more and once you look at it and realize how much you can do when you're focused, you start to be like, what's going on here? Like, why is the world like it is, where we get stressed because an email's there?
Mhm.
So, I'm really trying to change my brain a bit. And I don't envy some of the younger generations that have gotten even more accustomed to, like, somebody texted me, I have to write them back, like, kind of stress. But anyway, I digress. So, the tools. So first of all, project management, content calendars. There's a lot of things and different tools that you can use to lay out the calendar, to sort of track your process. So once you have the process, so maybe you, and I don't want to jump into repurposing, but how you create the biggest content
Mhm.
piece and then how it breaks down into other pieces, and then document that process. So ideally, what I want to do is build, I do Loom videos and I record how things work. So if this is how I do a large content, break it down into smaller content, I want to record that and document it for other people on my team, even if I don't have anybody yet, for this future moment when I have someone to help them, they know exactly how I want it to do. So I want to build that sort of process and training for the
Mhm.
future. Now, in addition, like we use Trello, which is, I think, an okay tool, but there's a lot of tools, Asana, Monday, but some of them will click up, they will go through processes of scheduling and they'll say, here's what you do once you have the large content break. Like it just will step by step through, and it allows other people to help you with that
Yeah.
content. Once you have that, then you look at tools. There's a lot of social media scheduling tools. I use HubSpot. There's a Hootsuite, and there's a bunch of, I think,
Sprout
Sprout. I think
Sprout
Canva
Social.
might do it
Yeah.
now. But for example, you talked about pillars. So what if I focus on one pillar? My mind is there. Let's create, 10 more things for that. If I'm using a good scheduler, then I can schedule every Tuesday, I'm going to talk about that. And then next week, I'm shifting to another topic. And then I'm going to schedule out 10 on it on Thursday. So by doing that, I've sort of improved my focus. And it's okay when you think about a week to week to talk about the same
Mhm.
thing, different graphics, slightly different message, even if you're linking to the same place. So try to do that stuff and use scheduling tools for your brain efficiency. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Because it's when you change tasks, I'm sure there's stats. You probably know all these stats because I know you're good at that. But there's stats about how you lose time or you lose efficiency when you do that.
Right.
So anyway, so that's one piece. The automating repetitive tasks. So you know for me, I started to develop lead magnets, which are it's downloadable content. For example, there's a webinar promotion checklist. It's just a single page with these check boxes. You can make sure you did everything when you're doing a webinar. That's a downloadable thing. It has a landing page. Once I create that really hardy piece of content, I want to promote that at least once a month,
Yeah.
right? So this could be repetitive stuff that it gets, scheduled out, and it's a good solid content. I just need to change, the message. I might use some of the tips in there as pieces. So, automating that is huge. And so I think, you know, despite all the automation I'm talking about, there's got to be sort of this human aspect to
Yeah.
it. So you have to figure out the moments when you're going to do that. So even if you're using tools to help you write, whether it's other people or AI or different tools, you want to make sure the language sounds like you're talking to
Mhm.
somebody. So sometimes people get uncomfortable with things sounding too casual, but you have to know when someone's looking at social or listening to something, they want it to sound as human and real as possible. So,
Absolutely.
the way I talk, yeah, isn't always, polished like I'm an author or a professor at a
Right.
university. There's a casualness to
Yeah.
it. So I think you want to figure out how that translates to your writing, even if somebody's helping you with it. Like, what is your voice? So
Yeah.
I don't know if you've had any struggles with that area, but that's always been, the voice part. So,
I think you hit the nail on the head with don't be afraid to, use that same theme, consistently over and over
hmm
again because I mean, as a business, you only do so many things, you know?
hmm
And you cannot control necessarily who's looking at your content week 1 versus week 3.
Right.
So
Right.
don't be afraid that, oh my God, I've already covered that, so I can't
Mhm.
say it
Mhm.
again. Mm-mm. No,
Yeah.
that's not the way it works. Coca-Cola is selling the same product that they have for, eons, right?
Right. Yeah.
And yet they're
And they're
still,
running commercials that look the same, right, for a while.
yeah, but
So,
they're still
yeah.
out there delivering that same message to us, even though we all know,
Mhm.
who Coca-Cola is and what they do, right?
Mhm. Yes.
So
Mhm.
don't be afraid to have that consistency in the messaging,
Mhm.
and
Yep.
feel like, you've got to be this YouTube star that comes up with a whole new scenario every time you're on,
Right.
you know?
Yeah. No, it's too much. I mean, and when you're growing your business in the early years, or even as you're trying to refocus, you have to figure this out. Like you really have to figure out how am I going to do this? Because this having content on LinkedIn, I'll just say LinkedIn because that's one of from my main
Yeah.
target, and maybe YouTube and other places. But you have to have some consistency, some things. Like think about when you're selling to someone and you're having a conversation, you think like if they also see you pushing out quality helpful content on LinkedIn during the process of your sales cycle, that doesn't help you. So I mean that stuff is huge. Like having that stuff, it makes you look like it's just like you're part of the conversation. It's like an empty profile, an empty social space could be really dangerous. um, so yeah, I think the last part of tip two is really content blocking and focus time and blocking your time out. So you've got to, I mean, really, if you haven't made it to a point in your business where you are carving out at least an hour or two a week for not just content but for something,
Mhm.
like then I think you're going to get stuck. There's a point you only can do so much, but you have to break out an hour and just say, okay, I'm going to accomplish these two things. Just break them into 30 minutes, whatever you can do, but you'll be surprised at what you can achieve when you shut Slack off, you turn the phone away from you, and you shut the email, and you say, I'm going to do
Yeah.
this, and then you do it again next week. So I mean, you feel better.
You feel like you're
so
being
so
proactive rather than reactive, because there's so many
mhm.
times when the business
Yeah.
can drive us, right? And control
Mhm.
our
Yes.
time to the point
Yes.
where we don't feel like we're really moving that
Mhm.
needle or being
Yeah.
proactive at all. And
No.
doing that time
No, I
blocking
agree.
makes so much sense to really
Mhm.
say, I'm just going to focus on that. And each of us know,
Right.
like, when are we in our most creative mode? For
Mhm.
me, it's
Yep.
mornings.
Yeah.
Morning is really my time when I can get creative with writing things. I can get creative in
Mhm.
brainstorming things.
Yeah.
By the end of the day, just, give me a glass of wine and just let me
Yeah.
unwind. Please don't ask me to use my brain by the end of the
Right,
day.
right. No, I yep. I have this moment like in the afternoon where I'm just like, "Oh, I think I need a nap." Like, what's going on?
Right. Right. But and there are some I have some friends that, they're really early birds. So they're up between 4:30
Yeah.
and 5 in the morning. No, thank you.
Oh,
I don't like
that's a
that.
little too much. That's not
That's
my
yeah,
morning.
that's a little much for me. But that's when they really have their focus time. And then
Mhm.
I have another girlfriend who burns the midnight oil. She likes between
Yeah.
11 p.m. and midnight to do her stuff.
Mhm.
And it's
I know.
all
It's
good. It's
beautiful.
whatever
Yeah.
works for you.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
even
Yeah, and there's
even
no
if you have
mhm.
15 minutes, right? You're sitting there
Mhm.
with a cup of coffee in the morning before the kids come running, from their
Mhm.
bedrooms for breakfast or
Mhm.
whatever, and you've got that quiet time. Jot down some
Yeah.
ideas, do some
Mhm.
mind
Yeah.
mapping, where you
Mhm.
just do that bubble
Yep.
thing. Everybody's seen those bubbles, right? And you just put
Mhm.
like, okay,
Mhm.
what am I trying to solve in the middle of it, you
Right.
know? And
Mhm.
then what are some of the things that can help me to solve that problem that I want to talk about in content? As kind of
Yes.
like, I don't know, if I'm worried about website traffic, that's in the middle of my bubble. And
Mhm.
then it might be, um, okay, how do I get more website traffic? Well, I use SEO. I use organic content. I
Mhm.
use, video strategy to,
Mhm.
whatever it is, right? And then you create all of these arms or extensions out
Mhm.
from that bubble, and those, and
Yeah.
just doing that in 15 minutes while you're having your coffee
Mhm.
in the morning
Yep.
can be
Yep.
set you up for that additional,
Yep.
content development.
You can use a voice recorder on your phone, just and whatever works for you. That's what you should do. Yep, for
Yeah,
sure. So,
absolutely.
yeah. Well, why don't you take us into tip 3 then?
Well,
So let's see what you got for the last
I think
one.
it's a combination of what you and I are talking about with the repurpose and repurpose type
Mhm.
of scenario. So don't be afraid to say that same thing over and over again. And in
Mhm.
fact, consistency is so important in marketing, right? They used to
Mhm.
say in,
Mhm.
when I was in doing speech class years ago, right? Is like,
Mhm.
for you tell the audience what you're going to tell them, and then you tell them, and then you tell them what you told them.
Yes.
And those were the
Yeah.
3, the 3 pillars of a
Mhm.
speech.
And you hope they remember.
Right, right, exactly. So, I think, kinda using that philosophy as well into your
Mhm.
content marketing, is so good. And repurpose it in other ways, like I was saying before, turn that blog into an infographic and then post
Mhm.
that on Instagram, or, LinkedIn loves infographics too. So, just like
Mhm.
know where that content is going to play best in which
Yep.
channel, right?
Mhm.
And then also, control that procrastination. Right,
Mhm.
because we're all
Mhm.
scared. We wanna put out content that is going to be something that, everybody loves. I mean, who wouldn't want their
Mhm.
TikTok video to go to 1,000,000 views? I mean,
Mhm.
that's the ultimate goal, but, in reality, you just drill it down, you're after that right target audience and those people that
Mhm.
are going to engage with you, that are going to have that
Yep.
meaningful relationship with you from a business
Mhm.
perspective. So,
Yeah, and I think for that, I like to have a cadence of, okay, ideally, we're going to create something downloadable or something longer
mhm,
form every quarter.
mhm,
And so the best part, if so, figure out your cadence,
yes,
right? And then from that, every month or whatever's going on there, when is that going to, what am I going to do? Is there going to be a blog to support it monthly within that quarter? And then within that blog and that piece, is there socials weekly?
mhm,
Can I create, like you said, an infographic to support it, or does it already have it in the original content? That becomes a piece. And then maybe I want to do a video talking about how I used it for somebody.
yeah,
So, and we're working, I mean, it's a constant evolution, right? So it really is constant process. But I I'm grids, like, I'm an Excel, like Google Sheets and Excel kind of person. And maybe that makes me old school, but like, how, whatever we have, how is it being used? What is the frequency? Because I can't keep this all in my brain either,
right.
right? It's too much. So I have to, sort of let that live somewhere so I can be reminded. And when it's time, I can get
Yeah,
help to do that.
and,
So
it
yeah.
sets you up for success too, because are you really going to remember what you posted, 3 weeks
Mm-hmm.
ago, a month ago, without
Mm-hmm.
some system in
Yeah.
place to help you, whether it's a smart sheet or an Excel spreadsheet
Mm-hmm.
kind of, program, or,
Mm-hmm.
like you were talking
For
about, any
sure.
of those tools, Asana, whatever, to really
Mm-hmm.
help you. And then use that as a guide too. Okay, in
Mm-hmm.
January, we talked about these
Yeah.
things, right? Well, it's April now,
Yeah.
so maybe it's time to bring
Mm-hmm.
some of that back and,
Mm-hmm.
just refresh it a little bit. You don't
Yeah.
necessarily have
Mm-hmm.
to totally redo, right? You can repurpose
Yeah.
in new ways, add a
Yeah.
different graphic to it or whatever, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah. And Lori, I just posted that comment. She was agreeing with the
Yeah.
consistency and talking about the, how we need to repeat things, or someone needs to see it like 7 to 20 times before it's remembered. Like we've sort of touched on that. Like the message, especially people have to see it multiple times and ideally in different ways. Like they could hear it, they could see it, you know,
Yeah.
they can read it. There's a lot of ways that people can digest that stuff.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And
hmm
I think just,
yeah.
also I would say, you know, with the procrastination and the fear of what content do I use,
Mm,
look at
yeah.
everyday
Valid.
experiences in your life that
Mhm.
can translate to something relatable from your business perspective, you
Mhm.
know? One of the things I focus on in a lot of storytelling that I do has to be about bad customer service experiences, and we've all had
Mhm.
them, right?
Mhm.
So,
Yep.
how do we take those everyday things in life and be able to use that to develop content too? It's kind of
Yeah.
all around us, but we just kind of keep the blinders on when
Mhm.
we're going through our everyday, but see,
Mhm.
understand what you're drawn to on your own by other
Yeah.
storytellers, by other brand ambassadors that are out there. What are they talking
Mhm.
about that has
Yep.
really resonated with you? And you
Mhm.
can add a lot of content ideas around doing
Yeah.
that, and the procrastination for developing the content will become less and less
Mhm.
because you'll be like, "Oh, I can talk about this and I can talk about that," and, you
Yep.
can really
Mhm.
fill that content calendar pretty quickly.
Yeah, and I recently was, sometimes there's things happening, just normal things happening in the world, like the Oscars
Yeah,
or the eclipse that's coming up. I don't think you're going to see it as well, but in Texas, we should see it pretty good. But I was like, okay, is there a way to think of the eclipse as it relates to marketing? Like, is there something
there you
interesting?
go.
And I think I created something for the Saturday prior there, but I was like, every now and then tie it into something if you see, there's always something like that happening, especially, like the Oscars and, there's holidays, of course, but there's also just things, right? There's a space
Yeah.
launk or there's something cool happening.
Women's History
So,
Month,
find
we
something.
just had Women's
Yeah.
History
Yeah.
Month,
That's a good one. The months. Yeah.
or
I think it's Earth Month too right
yeah,
now or something now that we're in April.
yeah.
So, yeah.
So there's a lot of things that you can piggyback on instead of
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
trying to, oh, I've got to, generate like original ideas. Well, I don't know if there
Right.
is an original idea actually out
Mm-hmm.
there in this world.
Not as according to the movies I see. They're all like recycled.
It's like, and they're still making millions on it. So
Yes,
they're
yes.
awesome for the
I
day.
refuse to see Roadhouse, by the way. That's not my Roadhouse. Patrick Swayze's the one. So anyway, I'm off topic,
No, that's
but I like your procrastination thing. I really, you do have to think about what is your fear, and I've thought about this before. I've had people overthink a social post. Like unless you're talking about really controversial or your brand has some issues, which we do work with people that have to be very extra sensitive, but otherwise, I mean, if there's a storm because you did a typo, like, okay, well, at least they're reading and they're engaging and you can fix it and you're human. Like it's not as bad as you might, start to feel in the first place. So
yes, yeah. And there's that old saying, and it's like, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? And it's like,
such a disturbing statement
don't
though.
really look at it as this huge thing,
Right, right,
but
right.
really bite-sized bits, okay? And
Yep,
I'm an
for
animal
sure.
lover, so please no, hate mail or anything. But, uh,
I'm gonna start a petition for you. So well, good. Well, this has been really good. So, any closing words? Are you? I think there's those 3 tips are
I
very
I would
valuable. So,
say, do what Nike says and just do it. Just, dive
yes,
in,
just go,
right?
just do it. Start building it.
And
Yep.
even if your content calendar says, "I'm going to do 2 posts a week," and that's
Mm-hmm.
it. That's great.
Mhm.
That's probably 2 more
Yes.
than you're doing right now,
Exactly.
right? So,
Exactly.
that's a great
Mhm.
place to
Start somewhere.
start.
Yeah.
Ju Put that toe in the water
Mhm.
and stay consistent with it. If you're gonna post on Tuesdays and
Yeah,
Thursdays, post on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Use the
for
automated
sure.
tools to help you keep that going and schedule that out.
Mhm.
So, you're
Mm.
not sitting there every Tuesday and Thursday manually doing it. You've got
Mhm.
it, like, already played out for the month.
Yeah, for sure. So, all right. Well, until next time,
Until next time,
don't
everybody have
forget.
a great rest of the week and welcome to
Yes.
April. Hope it's going to be a great one for
Yes.
y'all.
I think so. I'll see you next
Okay,
time.
bye.